Boom, we are live, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us today. It's Tio with the Arcane Bear. Give us a thumbs up if everything is going smoothly. Back to live streaming again here. I'm just going to go over, I guess, some charts here and some news, which is something we don't normally do, but I found it entertaining, so I think maybe you might as well. So that's what we're gonna do. Let's start back with our macro Bitcoin story. So if you have been following the channel since early 2020, you will remember this chart because I haven't changed it at all. It stayed exactly the same. What's fun about this is, well, first off, we try to measure long-term aggregate instead of single point specific. So instead of trying to pick an exact bottom, we look for aggregate of price over time and to build conviction over time. Seems to be the best methodology, the easiest track record for results, and the easiest to repeat as well. So because of this, venture capital, I think, which is kind of uniquely fallen in this decentralized space where, for better or for worse, we see the growth of all these unique companies, some thousands of plus crypto tokens that are out there, most of which are on the very outskirts scams, and more in the middle ground, just things that are going to fail because that's the likelihood of almost any idea. And then there's those gems in the middle that change the way we view what this technology is capable of doing. So it started off as Bitcoin for me, but because of that, this macro story is super important. So let's for a second go back to Bitcoin here, and let's throw on our log version of this story because it'll put it all into one, or at least one more visual moment. So if you've been around for a while, even longer than the channel's been around, these areas back here between 2013 and 2015 and 2017, effectively, these were, especially 2015 to 2017, this is really long, drawn out bear market. There was no considerable interest in crypto or Bitcoin at large yet. People didn't really understand it. And to that point, a lot of people weren't using even technology as much. The internet was still much earlier in 2015 than it is today. Like today, everybody knows about why you would want to be on the internet. But even then, back in 2015, it was like, there was still like 30% of the people that were like, nah, ain't having nothing to do with Instagram or YouTube. Or anyways, point of this being technology kind of adopts slowly at first. And back in 2015, we're in a much slower time than we are now. And bottoms are hard to pick. So aggregate time here, if you would just continue to purchase every month, you end up with a really nice rounded zone. Now, there are times to wait for bottoms, right? That's another way to look at it. Although we've gone over so many times the almost totally insignificant difference between those investors who pick out the exact bottom on a yearly basis versus those who just average in to some degree or another. They're basically the same, so why not remove all that headache? So averaging in is still better. The technicals can help find like max bottoms of fear. I guess it's more of a fundamental, but we view them as a technical chart. So we're going to go over a few fun things, I think, again today, just kind of looking at the broader markets and remembering that Bitcoin, in my mind, is a commodity. Bitcoin is a product of the protocol itself, right? So the reason why all these miners are getting paid to do this is because they create a product that's usable within the service effectively. And that's a very, I think, important product for the, like what I'll consider the core financial center of the hopefully decentralized system we are building. So because of that, every time we go through one of these, let's call it a downtrend, or I like to look at it as an accumulation trend. You know, the bears get a bad rap, but the bear is effectively designed for accumulating. The best thing to do in a bear market is just basically broad spectrum accumulate the things you're most interested in. But also remember that, to be patient. So we're going to show two stories here. We're going to look at the macro story, which is probably the most easy to follow because no matter what happens, good companies will survive. Good ideas will outlast governance, and whether it's a feudal system, technology sticks around. Like no matter what government you've been through or what money you use, like chairs are relatively the same type of chair. You know, chairs have not evolved a whole lot. So because of that, the product or the service within the ecosystem evolves to be what's the most robust for its effectiveness and duty, whereas government just doesn't always seem to fit that standard. It just goes off on a willy-nilly, can do whatever it wants, doesn't need to be profitable, doesn't even need to be good at its goddamn job. Anyways, so this kind of a new evolving standard. Oh, and what is Bitcoin's at 23,000 right now too? Perfect, beautiful. That's what we like to see. So in this growth, it's really easy to get stuck in the micro, right? So let's go back to, here we go. Here's a nice version of the trading range we had been following. So I still feel very strongly that what we're witnessing is 3 peaks in a domed house and that we're going to turn around here quite quickly. This looks like an accumulation channel to me still. In fact, it looks like a much stronger accumulation channel than we had seen in the past with our macro chart here, which I've left on log. Okay, there we go. So our macro chart here, this new accumulation channel, what I believe to be a new accumulation channel, actually looks a lot stronger, and it's more noticeable on the log chart. So we always, or at least I always try to have a driving thesis that gives multiple years into the direction of any idea. Otherwise, it's really easy to get it right and then leave because you were just early. And that's what happens to most people. That, and they do silly things like play with leverage, which everyone usually tries to do at one point or another and finds out it's not a great idea. If you've got a bunch of capital, you can play around with a modality that makes sense, but here just so much volatility in the upside potential. So when we're looking at the macro here, right? So a bit of a bigger time frame. We've got multiple years in the story, and here we're really looking only at the last year. So this last year for Bitcoin, boom, just like this. We're going to look at it on a few different charts. So we're going to look at it here. This is the fear version of this chart. So this is basically the whole year. You've both of these peaks are each of these peaks, and then this long drawn out fear moment here, where we've really ridden along the bottom of fear for pretty much since the start of 2020. We've been at these very low bottoms since 2020. And we look at the max of the chart. There's very few times where Bitcoin has spent this much time down in this maximum amount of fear. So what we're very, very likely to see right now is a strong automatic rally, and we're seeing it in most assets. So this is quite fun. Now, I think a lot of people are going to make a mistake here. The automatic rally is going to do one of two things. It most likely is going to come up to around 29,000 is what it looks like to me. There's a pretty big gap here. But first it needs to close back above 22. Now, I've stood by this thesis that it was going to come down and turn around. Now, how big this spring would be is always kind of anyone's guess. Like the fact that 3 Arrows Capital kind of went bust here is ridiculous to me. Now, if you had looked at their internal debtor list, maybe it would have been so ridiculous. But from the outside, it looked pretty ridiculous, right? So I think what we're witnessing is a spring here, and I think it's going to continue upwards. I think we're going to jump back above 31,000 and then close into this box. Now, if we come back down even lower, which we could, because we're dealing with a lot of large macro headwinds in terms of like oil and food and product and service and people being the most important, it's very likely that this could send tailspins into every asset for probably deeper than anyone would like. But nonetheless, the thesis still stays the same. We need something better than the current system that we have, and this technology provides that, with Bitcoin at a core of the money and kind of the outskirts of L1 and then into the gaming sector specifically. So this looks quite strong to me. Now, if we get a little bit closer in on the chart here, let's go with the 6 hour. We can see that there is a nice trading range that is looking like it's about to close above the box. So this to me looks like it's about to be an SOS with its backup phase before it continues higher. And we see that in other assets too, right? So with Ethereum blew well outside the box here. And normally if you have an upthrust after distribution, it's on this second area here, not on the third. So if it had been an upthrust and a distribution, it would have come back down here, made a lower high, and then continued lower down. So breaking above the box, especially with this much strength, I think is a great indicator for what happens next in the market, which is a likely continuation. I don't know how we get there effectively, right? A lot of the market outside of crypto is built on debt. Like the housing market is a bubble built on debt. Crypto isn't really built on debt. It's had so many cycles to get to this point. And as a commodity, as a product of this mining, we'll just go with what it's called. Like as a product of mining, I think it will react differently. Now, how that separation again takes place, whether it's today or a few years down the road, I'm not entirely sure. We could go down to $12,000. There's nothing to say that we can't go lower. Like the Federal Reserve basically controls everything in terms of monetary velocity on this planet right now, and that's a pretty bad thing, right? So besides like the ridiculousness of the fact that or at least a very few people, because you got the Bank of Canada doing the same dumb shit, just printing enormous amounts of money and handing it out willy-nilly. That always ends badly. But this technology has not been built in that. This technology is not built around people taking out enormous amounts of debt to buy things that they can't afford for like hundreds of thousands. Maybe some people did that, but it's actually much farther and few between. And it's easier to get liquidated while doing that here in this market too. We see strong closes above the box for multiple assets. Here's AValanche closing above its trading range at this moment as well, above the box. So these are strong indicators that we have at least just completed one accumulation trading range. The first we've seen since the $60,000 mark on Bitcoin. And this is the bullish indicator. So usually what these do, they go up for an SOS, they come up for a backup phase. Everyone's like, yeah, see, it was a scam. And then they explode. And I think a lot of people are going to get left out here. I feel that this market has separated. Now, it may not have. Maybe I'm a year too early. I've been early about a bunch of stuff before, so hey, what's to say we're not early about the price? Just assume that it goes down to 12,000 so that you can be capable of continuing a strategy that allows you to accumulate more, but also know that I feel very strongly that we might be vindicated in this overall thesis here, that this actually turns around quite sharply. Let's go back to Bitcoin here. That this 3 peaked in a dome house, it turns around actually quite sharply, and becomes basically a blip in time. Bitcoin wasn't built off debt, not the way the housing market was, not the way the stock market was. It's not even close to the same, in my opinion. Now, it's a highly risky asset, but there will be a point when it breaks, and it's usually when things become more tense. So also expecting the VIX to shoot up here in the next little while. So it's very likely that we'll test around the $30,000 mark now that we're closing above the box here on multiple assets. Let's see, we've got Solana also now closing above its box, and we're in log here. Let's take it out. Closing above the box with strength, another great indicator. And for Solana here, we were already back down near the bottom of our Livermore widening megaphone too. So those are our three kind of main layer ones. We removed FTM. I think Near is interesting too, so let's just take a look at see how Near performed in, actually, where did I drop it? There we go. So again, this looks like a 3 peak in a dome house again to me. You just can see the artifact here, the kind of the footprint of this thing out in the wild, and it's returned basically down to 0.10. Now that would have been way down here, $2, so it didn't go all the way. So again, there's room to believe that these can go lower to all the way down to 0.10. But considering Bitcoin slipped and Ethereum's led the way with strength here, I'm feeling more and more confident that we actually get a rebound. And then it might leave a lot of people out of the dust. Like it's a bear, a bear trap. People think, no, it's going to go lower. Bitcoin's going to go to 12 grand or 8 grand or something. And then it jumps from 20 to 30 to 60. And then you have a bunch of people rebuying back in almost near the previous highs. Again, there's a lot of reason to believe in the rest of the market that doesn't happen. So we'll be optimistic for Bitcoin because we need a better solution than what we have out there. So just for fun, let's give some more reason why. The index commodity prices for grains here has dropped dramatically. We were up at the beginning of this almost another 30%, but we've dropped back down. So we've recoiled all that. We're back at the 2021 grain prices, not too far out of line, almost like, was it about 100 and something 5%, 58%. Okay, so much better. We were at 100 and something percent. So still massive increase in the cost of food for people around the world. So there's reason to be worried about, like, maybe not where you live, but food is a very important thing. Let's look at the rest of the energy sector is still jacked up here. Not incredibly out of line or out of sync. We did have higher, equally as high prices back here in 2015, even though it's cut off on this chart. But we are at a pretty, what was it, almost 100% here too. Holy shit. Sorry, I was wrong. 500% increase in energy costs since the kind of the peak bottom of 2020's pandemic. So we are still jacked up in energy costs. So these are not good things necessarily, right? We don't, when the average person can't afford life anymore, 300% on Brent oil since 2020. We have dropped down a little bit. I mean, a slight retracement on Brent oil here at 20%, but nothing significant yet, not compared to how low we were in 2020, but also not higher than any other time. Like between 2010 and 2015, we were running approximately this price for oil as well. I guess you're looking at probably industrial costs have changed significantly to produce the gas itself, let alone, because this is just oil. This is crude. Brent oil, I believe, is crude. It's unrefined, so it doesn't represent the cost of like gas or diesel specifically. It represents the cost of the product going into that refinement process. So it's like 100 different products, I think, in the oil itself. What else did I want to chat about? Oh yes, we wanted to go over the dollar here. Oh yeah. So I guess more than like the point of this was, okay, well, where's the bottom in? You never want to pick the bottom. We're close enough to the bottom. There's enough signals there, I think, in the crypto sector. In the rest of the markets, I wouldn't touch anything in the traditional market, even real estate. Like real estate is massively overinflated. Again, you have to remember that where the inflation is coming from is largely where people could take out this massive amount of debt with no interest rates, right? That basically means you could fucking fail at building a business and still do okay because of the taking debt out. So I think it's important to recognize that a lot of the housing market could come down significantly still because of that debt inflation. Let's take a look. We have one more here. Oh yeah, index wheat has dropped pretty much back down as well. So it's good to see that some of these everyday commodities are coming down, because this really hurts the average individual, the family in rural Uganda or something, you know. Actually, speaking of rural Uganda, while we're here, let's go to Kiva. For those of you that don't know, we like to do loans through Kiva. It's been a while since we've been back on YouTube. Heck, I hope it's still working smoothly. So if you've never been to Kiva before, what it allows you to do is make loans to entrepreneurs. So we've, as a team, Arcane Bear, lent out $28,000 in total. So congrats to everyone that joined in. You get paid back from the loans that you make too, so it's amazing. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to Kiva. We're going to find a borrower, make a loan, change a life. I like tech like this, financial services for the many. So hey, look, Uganda. We were just talking about Uganda. Lend to all three of these people. So Senegal, Uganda. Let's do that. Lend to all three. I've never tried to lend to three people at the same time. Okay, here we go. We can let's go. We'll lend $100 each. I'm not sure how much we have in here, but we'll start with that. I don't want to have to click it too many times. Okay, there we go. And then we make a small loan to Kiva, a donation to Kiva of $50. So you can write this off as your for taxes or whatever. But anyways, the loan itself, there's I think it's at a 1% interest rate, so it's really easy for the farmers. And then boom, just like that, each of those farmers gets a little bit of a loan. So what's fun is you can actually go look at them. I probably should have shared more of one of their stories. Let's take a look. Here we go. Well, let me click on this. Okay, well, view loan. There we go. See, they're not even super hip on their tech. You got to click on the exact view loan button. You can't even click on the larger photos. Kiva needs some love, ladies and gentlemen. And it's not loading either. Okay, that's this is not the one I clicked. That's in Paraguay. I was interested in Senegal, thank you, or Uganda. Okay, we'll go to agriculture. We'll do this again. I wanted to share their stories, I guess. Oh, here, look, here's someone in Costa Rica, too. Guatemala. Well, we're always big fans of Guatemala. A resupply her store and her new poultry business. $1,500. Okay, let's see this. Okay, so here's, we'll do this one. So animal sales or animal husbandry, I'm assuming what that is, so to grow chickens and poultry. Wilma's 30 years, mother of two who are 6 and 10 years old. She only has a 6th grade education. Their funds are needed for the children to go to school, but they're looking for a loan to restock the shelves of a store and open a new poultry business selling chicken. Well, I like chicken soup. We'll go with this. So what we do is here we'll give it's a maxed out here at $500. So we'll make the $500 loan here just so we can do a specific one. It's kind of fun to see their stories. And let's see, there's more loan details here too. So you can go, okay, there's 8-month loan. Cool. So they pay it back in only 8 months. That's amazing. It's a monthly repayment schedule. It's fixed funding at 1%. And is the borrower paying interest? Yes. And I believe these are all stacked at 1%. So they have to pay a little bit back. But heck, that's better than the interest rates. And for this one, we're going to give no donation to Kiva just because we just gave them a donation. And we'll do this one, just trying to share how it works. So I don't know, I love Kiva. That's probably one of my favorite ways to give back, especially to entrepreneurs. They're better at using the money. Like giving charity money is difficult sometimes because you don't know how people work with business. Here, these people just need help. They already have a manageable idea. They need make turnaround. So this is I'm a big fan of Kiva for that one. So if you haven't checked it out, go check out Kiva. Just a little bit of a side story here while we were looking at the cost of fucking wheat. Was so expensive. It was almost back down to normal though, so that's good. What else? Oh yeah, we wanted to look at the dollar and the S&P 500. Let's just a general market overview right now. Hey, the dollar's turned down a little bit. Let's see. Nice. We do see some potential crossovers with our RSI here as well. I could add the RSI. They have let's move this to the top. And we shrink this down to nothing. Yeah, we are hitting a peak out there for we are peaking out there for the dollar index, at least for a little bit. We'll see. They raised interest rates again this time, and Bitcoin's price was positive, so it's a good sign. Again, I don't think we're running on debt in this sector. Some people were, so apparently I should go back here. The VIX is calming down a little bit too, but while we were here, I didn't realize you could do this on TradingView, but you can go to the news here, like this. Over $600 million. You can't read it. You can't see this on my side. So over $600 million liquidated as Bitcoin's price soars towards 23 grand. Yeah, that makes sense. A lot of people, you don't go short at the bottom of the market. That's the worst time to do it. You go short at near the top. But where's this 3 arrows one I was reading? Yes, here we go. Okay, so you could do news on I don't normally look at the news, but this is something I want to go over. So 3 Arrows Capital liquidator meetings reveal that the firm no longer owns Bitcoin or Ethereum. At a liquidator meeting that was held this morning, they found out that they have no Bitcoin or Ethereum. The interesting part here too is this Soldman Gax guy has been sharing a lot of the data from Teneo, their liquidator. 1,100 pages. So just a quick summation here, because this is just kind of ridiculous. I just said we're not operating on debt, but okay, so some of us aren't. But these guys were massively in debt here. So the firm that encompasses 80% of the claims, including Digital Currency Group, Voyager Digital, Blockchain Access UK, Matrix Port Technology, CoinList, Trend, and these were, I think, some of these guys had lent them like hundreds of millions, billions of dollars. So the breakdown of the assets revealed that they revealed bank account, direct crypto holdings, underlying equity projects, NFTs. Notably, Three Arrows Capital no longer owned any Bitcoin or Ethereum at the time of investigation. Just these motherfuckers were okay. Hoodwinked, I think is the correct term for this one. So it says, despite Teneo asking that the contents of the meeting remain confidential, Soldman Gax decided to share all of the details. Three Arrows Capital creditor cited public interest and responsibility towards users, shareholders, lenders. It's also important to note that Suju also found himself on that list of creditors to the company, and Three Arrows owes him $5 million. And Kyle Davies' wife, Shen Kali, she's claiming that Three Arrows owns her $66 million that she would like to get paid back as well. So over $2.8 billion, the current valuation, in total claims were made, where many are still left out for making any claims. So there are a bunch of other people that had lent them some type of capital that they're just not, they hadn't claimed, they hadn't said how much. There's like, yeah, we were on that list, but it doesn't even, they've just given up basically. So this is a fascinating story. This will go down in history because these guys held up a facade of a totally different ball game, I guess, you know. But if you would have looked under the hood here, which it doesn't look like too many did, you've got Digital Currency Group, DCG, like these, Voyager Digital. These guys were not small players, you know. You figure due diligence is somewhat okay, but damn, son, that's just incredible, way over. So let's see here. So Dr. Soldman Gax, if you want to check out the rest of this thread, there was a few other pieces of info they shared on here that I thought was ridiculous. No, it doesn't show it. Yes. Well, here's the loan from Kelly Chen. I guess this is Kyle Davies' wife. 68. We lent you $65 million. We're gonna need that back. After they've gone belly up. It's there was some other ones here though I thought that were interesting, but I can't seem to find it. Oh, there. We'll end with that one for now. Yes, okay. Let's see what else was going on in the news. Ethereum. Oh well, yeah, we know all this. There's nothing fun. Unveiled Celsius as creditors. Oh yeah. Celsius is gone. We'll look into more of their story. I guess just so much of this news is kind of unimportant. What's interesting though is that it happened, and that this sector did have a bunch of leveraged debt in it. And look, you can easily see it tucked in here, right? Like this was. What's also interesting is the way this market appears to have value, right? You've got two sides of a trade being held up on something like Uniswap, that's got basically no liquidity, claiming to be worth billions of dollars. Like, I don't know if you guys have ever seen it, but there's an episode where this kid he starts a company, claims that he's got 10 million shares, sells one share at $50, and becomes the most highly valued company ever. It's like, well, okay, that's financial fraud technically, because there's no other side to the trade if you're looking at it from just a security standpoint. But that's how the market views net value, right? Like if I create a token, or let's say we all go create a token for experiment's sake here, we make a limited supply of that token and we put it on Uniswap, and at that moment we get to pick how much it's worth next to the trade, right? So you only have to put up like probably less, but let's say $1,000, and then on the opposite side of the trade have a value of the token in its limited supply equal X, and then you have a company that's valued at billions of dollars, and you could trick the market to look at it like this, right? It'd be hard, companies probably just wouldn't highlight you, so we could make some arguments there, but nonetheless, that's where this fully diluted valuation comes from. It's this insinuation that the most recent sale of some idea of limited supply sold at this much. So that means all of the other ones, if they were to sell at equal or equivalent value, then the company would be valued at X amount of dollars. So you can make an argument like, oh, we're at $1 trillion. We could create $1 trillion cryptocurrency just by setting the settings correctly and having one sale execute at a kind of nominal price. So kind of a side point there. Alex Crictios, I didn't see your super chat there. I apologize. Says, what do you think about PPT? Does it still have a chance if we get a crypto bull run? First off, if you guys don't know what PPT is, it was a company that came out in early 2017 when DeFi was not even really yet a thing. It was sold on like Ether Delta and Fork Delta, and it was supposed to be a conscription for debt versus what do you call it? When you get a client for a really big project, you often don't get the money for the big project up front. So what you can do is you can take a loan from the bank for that project based off the receipt that the customer is going to pay, so that you can actually create the thing that you need to create to sell to the customer based off that customer's signature of like understanding. So these types of things are done in banking frequently, where you'll get loans based off your kind of current product sales and what you need to produce for your customers. I forget what it's called exactly, but PPT Populous went down this angle. Now this was, I think they've kind of failed effectively, and this is a risk we always measure. And it's like most of the things that one would invest in would fail. So what you try to do is you make a bunch of investments, and as time evolves, you make less or fewer investments into more things and just invest into the same things, right? So I've been a huge fan, or a growing fan, of the other side that Bored Ape Yacht Club has put together with Yuga Labs. Like, that just looks amazing to me. So, but you could have never sold me that as a Bored Ape in 2020. Like, it just wouldn't have clicked. But as they keep producing, you're just like, damn, these guys are really doing such a great job. So that conviction built with time is so important. Yeah. We're gonna leave it at that. We'll look at a few of your guys' thoughts and questions here. So with PPT, I'm not sure. The market will have to decide, and currently I have no idea what the market's doing. Like, that's why we try to focus only on games right now too. Is like, there's so much potential for so many different types of things, and you don't need to get it right a bunch, right? You just need to get it right a few times, and you're rocking, often only once. Depends how much capital you're playing with at that point. Unrelated, I think uranium is a great long-term play as well. Yeah, commodities I think will do well because they are in fixed or limited supply, at least for now. Jesse, great to see you again. I think we need a large rally over the next few weeks or months. There are bottom indicators like the Bank of America risk asset managers look like they're ready for rock for a bit. I think we're going to jump here soon as well. Yeah, even if the automatic rally, whether it turns into the start of a new bull market, I think is what is to be seen next. That's what I've been kind of hopeful for going down this whole time, is that once we got here, this would signal the bottom, and it would turn around and it would go up and outwards for unlike any other bull market we had seen. And that's kind of my assumption, is that we end up getting a longer bull market out of this. But we're at the very final stage where if it doesn't do this, my thesis has totally been invalidated, and I have to go, well, I was totally wrong. But we're right in that sweet spot where it's like, okay, this is at the bottom. This is around that bottom range we were looking for. And if it turns around sharply here, jumps back to 30 grand and above $32,000, good night. Like, this thing has it's got a lot of room to keep going. Well, yes. Vance's great job. Arcane Bears of Guatemala, thank you for financing that project. Oh, yeah, happy to. I love Kiva, so it's great that we can do that. I appreciate the comments there. Yes, and Jesse, I like your sentiment. We're at least going to get an automatic rally here of some kind, whether it's the end of the bull market or end of the bear market, or this accumulation cycle or not, has yet to be seen. But man, they were out billions of dollars in credit. What? That's impressive. $32,258 Bitcoin right now. Let's go in here and look a little bit closer. Let's rock open some more macro ideas here. There we go. Yes. Oh, yes. And we're closing above 22,000. This is where the SOS and the backup phase will check here. Go like this. Close above this 22,000 mark. Bam. We're going to be going to 31,000 pretty damn quick. Let's look back here on the daily. Yeah, even on the daily, we're starting to close above. Again, right around 22,000. We close above 22,000. We're staying above our kind of claw of EMAs here. Even with the bear claw. Oh, I don't have it open right now. So there's strong reason to think we're going to be running to around 30 grand here. In fact, that would be the strong bet. We ripped to about 30 grand. And then from there we get to find out if we were fully validated, because it could rip to 30 grand, be an automatic rally, come back just a little bit lower, and continue its accumulation range here. Like the accumulation range doesn't have to stay just down here. I think that this was the selling climax. I think we see a first automatic rally. We probably come down for a test. We see another this in the spring before we continue upwards. Like I don't think it'll just jump right away. Even if it does continue upwards, I think this trading range will probably extend itself a little bit further. Yeah, so that's it. Bullish technically, not at least for the short term. Again, my original thesis had it that this was the turnaround point, that we don't get this long drawn out bear market. We get a rip back down to, I thought it would only be 29, but whatever, we get 20. That was still within the range. Like I made very clear. I said, look, it could drop 10 to 30% lower than this $29,000 spot. It's happened. It's happened in other charts we've looked at. It doesn't always happen. Doesn't have to happen, but it could, and it did. So even better, technically, just means lower prices. So I think that this is kind of like the make or break moment for the full thesis. If we jumped 30 and jump back up, I was fucking right the whole time. And this has been a hard thesis to stand by the last week, I tell you that. Because if we broke lower, I was like, oh well, damn, we could be out of a market cycle for year. 2 years, right? Boom, boom. We could go way lower. We could go to 8 grand. Like there's nothing to stop us. Like how much money was there in debt? But I think that was it. I think we kind of hit the max debt threshold. I think we ripped to around 28 grand. And then we get to find out if we break above, if we in any way break above 32,000, 33,000, start to go through this big chunk of supply here we have here. Damn, we're going to rip to 60. We would rip to 60 after that overnight, but be cautious. Remember that consistency over time is the best play effectively. So there's no need to rush into any aggregate bottom. This is why we suggest just accumulating, even though I think Mr. Saylor's content around mortgaging your house for Bitcoin was definitely stupid. Being consistent with an investment strategy is not. And also we see AValanche and Solana moving very strong here too. Lots of reason to believe we get see here with Solana. I mean, you could get an automatic rally that goes all the way to $60. You could get 162% automatic rally right here, right? So both Solana and AValanche. Maybe Solana may be up to 80. You could get a huge rally here. Boom. Anyways, T with the Arcane Bear. Thank you all for joining us. Just a quick little update. Hope you guys are all having what's a wonderfully sunny day. I'm going to go sit outside. We've got some podcasts this week. We have a podcast with Big Time, our continual focus into the gaming sector. We've got a podcast with Gamey, which is one of the arcade play to earn games that Animoca has put together. Who else? We had a few others on the list. Oh yeah, the Near founder. Miria is another one we'll have on probably close to the end of the next month when they hopefully do L2 or something like this. But Near Ilya hopefully will come on this month again as well. Well, awesome. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us today. This looks good. These look really strong. Let's see how far it takes us. Not going to get too excited yet because we're dealing with what appear to be criminals in the financial control room at the Federal Reserve and the governments and banks around the world. So if you're dealing with criminals, it's hard to assess what they're going to do, because then you'd have to learn to think like a criminal. Most people would have a hard time doing that. So it could get weird out there. That's just my current assessment. I call it a conspiracy hypothesis. If you know anything about science, hypothesis is way more valid than theory. I'm not trying to say I'm right. I'm not trying to say anybody knows what's going on. Just that there's a good reason to believe that there's been some conspiring taking place around financial interests. Who would have thought people conspire around financial interests? It happens all the time, ladies and gentlemen. Anyways, deal with the Arcane Bear. Smash that thumbs up. Like button, comments, share the video. I appreciate all your guys' support. This is a lot of fun. I think we're going to see a lot of the fun stuff over the next few years. I have a hope that there's a renaissance coming. I'm optimistic for that renaissance as well. We'll see you guys in the next one.